Hi, welcome to the Property Show. I'm Jayashree Kurup. I'm editor MBTV. And today we're talking about real estate funds. What should developers do to access money for construction? And is the problem of money getting resolved at all? Discussing this with me is Jyoti Prakash Gadhia. He's the Managing Director of Research in India. I've got Mahendra Tewatia. He's the Chief Financial Officer of ACE Group. And Praveen Jain, VP, NAREDCO and CMD Tulip Infrastructure will be joining us very shortly. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And I'm going to start with Mahendra Tewatia. The reason why you're here, sir, is that you made a statement that I thought needs to be blown up. The government of India did, during the COVID time, they did give developers a 6-month extension. Here was one group that stood up and said, I don't need the extension. I have enough means and enough buffer for me to meet schedules. Now, this is a very, very different statement from most developers who've been asking for more time, who've been saying that we have lost the 3 months. So you're not the only one who's done it, but you're one of the few who did it. And I thought it was a good statement to make. And I wanted to know, what was it that gave your group the confidence to say that we will be delivering?
Yeah. Thank you, Jayashree. Actually, the ACE Group, has been in this real estate construction since 2010 onwards. And if you might have seen, even the real estate sector is a struggling sector right from then. And we have developed over 5,000 flats during that period, and that all delivery have been taken place well before the time. So that shows, how we plan and how we execute. And with no default from any authority and with the customer-centric approach, we always follow. Yeah. So during this time also, we made a statement, though the UP-RERA has given a suo extension of 6 months, and not only UP-RERA, in Maharashtra RERA also, I saw in the news, they were the first who gave 6-month extension. So that's a very welcome sign as far as UP-RERA is concerned, because no doubt during the COVID, every sector has been affected. But we made our planning. We provide to labor. We kept the labor at our site. We provided them food, shelter, and everything. We took care of them like as our family. So we did not allow them, we took care of them at our own without seeking any government efforts.
Did all the labor stay back?
Yeah, they stayed back. Some went, but most of them stayed back.
Okay.
So that was the planning, forward planning, and with little extra cost. And at the crisis time, you have to come forward and to take care of those who are putting their sweat into your development. So they are basically partner in progress. So with that confidence, because with this one, so as soon as the government allowed the construction with the in situ construction where the labor is on the site, so we took advantage of that. Mm-hmm. And because labor was over there, and though few labor left, but we were having sufficient labor to to start our construction. And in the month of mid of May itself, we started the construction.
What stage was your project at?
No, our project construction, like we have given the different timeline, like ACE Parkway at Sector 150. Our original timeline is December 21. Yeah. So we will be delivering by that period, even 3 months before that one. Sure. And then ACE Divino, we have the the original date over there by April 2023. So we will deliver it before that. So the 6-month extension has come, and the UP-RERA has done a good job, because instead of every developer applying for it and making a round and round to the bureaucracy, so it's good for the real estate that they themselves have allowed. But those who can try, and those who have means, and those who can deliver before time. Yeah. So we are doing it, and we are sure we will deliver even before the original time.
Before I go to the finance part of it, I'm going to go to Mr. Praveen Jain. Thank you so much, Praveen ji. Praveen ji, you represent the industry. Of course, most of the RERAs have given an extension to cover up that time that you lost during COVID. Do you think that all projects will take 6 months or a year more, or are there developers who are able to complete it in advance?
देखिए एडवांस में तो थोड़ा कहना मुश्किल है, बट 6 महीने तो मिनिमम डिले होगा ही, कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट की बात करें। और मुझे लगता है कि कुछ प्रोजेक्ट ऐसे होंगे जो 1 साल से ज़्यादा भी डिले होंगे। 2-3 चीज़ें हैं, कैश फ्लो की इशू है, एक तो लेबर का इशू है, लेबर कई साइट्स पर वापस नहीं आ पाई है, सेल जो पुरानी की हुई थी, इंस्टॉलमेंट्स नहीं आ रही है, बैंक जो हाउसिंग लोन है वो भी रिलीज नहीं कर रहे हैं लोन लोगों का। तो फाइनेंशियल इश्यूज भी हैं इस तरह के कि अभी मुझे लगता है कि शायद वो प्रोजेक्ट कुछ जो सेल्फ फंडेड प्रोजेक्ट हैं डेवलपर्स के द्वारा, वो तो 6 महीने डिले होंगे ही, बट बाकी प्रोजेक्ट्स जिसमें फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम्स आएंगी तो वो हो सकता है 2 साल तक डिले हो जाए।
Jyoti, I'm going to come to you. When clearly it was an unplanned kind of shutdown, and it was something that nobody anticipated. But when this an industry like this, when you restart, there is this clearly what Praveen Jain said, that the banks are not releasing the funds. There are many consumers who are saying, no, look, I cannot go on with this project, and the developer needs that cash flow to keep the work moving. So what is the finance perspective on that?
You see, ma'am, RBI has come up with first of all, as Mahendra ji also told, that it is a 6 months ka unhone period extension kiya, jaise Praveen ji ne bhi kaha. And then now the RBI has come up with one-time restructuring plan where the existing loan, it can be deferred by 2 years of all the installment, and you can plan your inflow now. What is the RBI is saying? You can just replan your inflow based on the market situation as on date. You can recast ki aapka inflow kab kitna रुपया आना है, and then you can approach all the lenders, whether whoever you have borrowed from NBFCs or bank, and you can ask them to realign the outflow of the interest and the installment depending upon the inflow. Yeah. So that's the window which the Reserve Bank of India has given to all the developers there. So they pretty well have now the golden opportunity to come out clean, and depending upon the operations, depending upon project by project, depending upon the company as a whole, they can just decide the outflow based on the inflow, whatever that they can project with. Although there are some conditions which might be little difficult for the real estate company to comply with, because first condition says that on 1st of March, the account need not to be overdue by more than 1 month. Yeah. So that is where some of the developers might face an issue. And there is again the restriction which Reserve Bank of India has told, the account there should not be any single account which should not be overdrawn by more than 1 month. Yeah. Now, as a developer in my parent company, I might have borrowed from 5 different lenders for 5 different projects. But in my company, I might have an issue with one of the project, with one of the lender, but I may not be able to account for this scheme for 4 other lenders also. Yeah. So for real estate perspective, it has to be from a project perspective. It cannot be dealt from a company perspective. That amendment, I think, say Praveen ji is here, we'll request him to get that amendment done. So Praveen ji, abhi ye logon ne kya kiya hai ki sir, company as a whole, they have taken into account on all the 5 projects. Adi ek company ke paas adi 5 project hai, 5 project ko adi alag-alag lender se liya hua hai. They are saying ki that company as a whole, they cannot have a default of more than 30 days. So यदि किसी एक प्रोजेक्ट में भी डिफॉल्ट है तो वी कैन नॉट इवन अप्रोच द 4 अदर लेंडर्स आल्सो. तो दिस इज वेयर आई थिंक फॉर द रियल एस्टेट इंडस्ट्री दिस स्लाइट अमेंडमेंट माइट बी रिक्वायर्ड.
Actually, it's not a slight amendment. It's a big amendment with long reaching consequences, because in real estate, and this is something that will be, I have another show in the afternoon where we're discussing the same thing. Real estate, while a developer has multiple projects, and Praveen ji, I would like you to respond to this. A developer has multiple projects, but there are local factors that determine which project goes at which pace and what has happened and things like that. If you club it all together, you are actually pushing it further down the crevice rather than trying to resolve the problems. Do you agree?
मैं बिल्कुल एग्री करता हूँ आपकी बात से और ज्योति की बात से भी। आप ये देखें कि अभी जो 1 महीने की बात की है, जो मार्च में 1 महीना डिले है प्रोजेक्ट, बट अगर रियल एस्टेट को देखें तो पिछले 2 साल से हम लोग काफी प्रेशर, डीमोनेटाइजेशन के बाद से चीजें थोड़ी खराब है रियल एस्टेट में, उसके बाद रेरा आ गया। तो मुझे लगता है कि वो टाइम लाइन भी जो है, अगर आप एनसीआर के प्रोजेक्ट देखें या ज्यादातर प्रोजेक्ट जो रुके हुए प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं उनकी बात करें, तो वो पुराने प्रोजेक्ट हैं। ये अगर हम 1 महीने की कंडीशन इस पे लगाएंगे, रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग की जो बात कर रहे हैं, वो भी कंडीशन गलत है। मुझे लगता है कि वो जितने भी प्रोजेक्ट रुके हुए प्रोजेक्ट हैं वो तभी पूरे हो पाएंगे जब हम उसका लोन रिस्ट्रक्चर करेंगे और फर्दर उनको 10% 15% जो नेटवर्थ पॉजिटिव प्रोजेक्ट हैं उनको फर्दर लोन देंगे।
Actually, Mahinder, help us understand, how did your group manage its finances so that you were, one is that you held the labor back. What about the capital inflows? Did you face an issue?
Yeah, actually, as far as capital management is concerned, you know, we take the project finance, and that too project finance we take project wise at a later stage, not at the stage at the time of launching the project. So when the construction reach up to a certain stage, so before that we flow in our own funds, so that the project comes at a certain stage, and after that we seek the project finance. So we are not very leveraged company, and the bankers, like Mr. Jyoti said just now, and the RBI, which now considering for 2 years, like 5 months, 6 month moratorium in interest they already gave from March to August, which has now expired in August, and now this 2 years extension, which Mr. Jyoti mentioned.
Yeah.
So in our case, though the bank, because of, so we take project finances, and we have no problem. We try to, though we have the flexibility to a drawdown, but we take the drawdown only when it is at most essential. We just don't take the drawdown that, because we have the facility and we should take the drawdown. So we try, from the collections and from the internal sources, and in utmost necessity only we take the drawdown.
But collecting is an issue over the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
There has been a slowdown in sale, and that's where the industry has been hit. So how did you counter that?
Actually, in the slowdown in the sale, now you see, since the RERA has come, the whole real estate industry has consolidated. Because before that, before the RERA, the whole industry was, was not in a regularized. There was no regulator. So there is a lot of filter down. Now only these select groups are left in the fray.
Yeah.
And those who are customer centric, and those who are making on-time delivery, and those who comply to all the statutory compliances, and those who make the, like in Noida and Greater Noida, the land is allotted by Noida and Greater Noida Authority. I'm not aware about the others. So here is the installment with deferred payment plan. So you have to adhere to that one, so that your bank finance, your APF fraud, the home loan, all go side by side. Because if there is a lapse in anywhere, so the banks will not do your APF, so your one window will close, because most of the funds, comes through the home loan.
Yeah.
So for that, you have to ensure that you keep on going the payment to the authority. You keep on having the valid licenses and approvals, because they all check it. And then the construction space and at the site should continue.
Yeah.
And more importantly, for the project you have taken the funds, it should be spent over there, because in the previous era, if because the more and more land banks and diversion of funds, so that should not take place. So then the project will come at its own, and you plan your COD and the project cost well in time, that what will your project cost. If you if you did not plan what will be your project cost, then the whole financial planning will go haywire. So these are the things which you have to plan in right from the beginning. What will be the commercial operation date, and how much is the project cost, and how much you have to tap from the bank. So that's how we are managing.
Do you need closure, financial closure, before you start a project, so that you know that whether consumer funds come or not, whether the bank funding gets delayed, whether NBFC fund gets delayed, that there should be a financial closure that itna paisa aa gaya to main khatam kar sakta hu. Is that
yeah? Yeah, we plan it actually. You see, in our projects, we first ensure that we make X, say 25% of the area booking, so that we have the receivable, even if we don't get. So once you have the receivable, though they have not become due, but your area is sold.
Yeah.
So that much receivable can complete the project.
Okay.
And then the CLP, the sales planning, or the payment plans, you have to plan that, okay, some say 30-40% should be minimum on the construction link plan, so that you have a recurring flow of the funds.
Yeah.
And which match with your construction. So that's how, we plan the our project development.
Jyoti, one thing that has happened is that many lenders have stopped giving the installments. Praveenji referred to it partially, but the point is that when things go wrong, suddenly the lenders just close their purse strings and say that I'm not lending, right? And this has happened. Of course, things are getting resolved right now, but that is what has held up a lot of the historic projects. What is the way out in that? How can lenders who have given retail loans also or project loans stop funding a project midway? What does it take to get this process moving into a working?
To understand, Jayashree ma'am, 2-3 things in the right perspective. First of all, as the Praveenji mentioned about the restructuring scheme, I would like to clarify for all the viewers that there are 2 restructuring schemes available right now also as permitted by our regulator. One is this recent restructuring scheme of this 9th August, where the account will not be downgraded and you can restructure your existing installments within the framework of whatever is your existing term loan period. You can extend it by 2 years, and within that extended period, you can realign the installment and the interest without getting your account getting downgraded. It means there will not be, because as per the circular of Reserve Bank of India, any restructuring tantamount to account becoming NPA.
Yeah.
So abhi jo 9th August wala jo circular hai, uske andar yadi koi any client which gets any of the person or the builder which gets their account restructured, their account will not be termed as the NPA account. Now there is a 2019 circular, which is an old circular, where any account whichever want to get themselves restructured, they can definitely do, follow the certain rules and regulations and the procedure, but there the only issue is that the account will get downgraded till the time 20% of the principal is repaid back to the bank, or 2 years, whichever is later. Yeah. So this is the process of the 2019 circular, where also you can get the restructuring done, follow some procedure, and you can get the restructuring. So restructuring can be done. This is one option. Second, as Praveenji also mentioned, there is a requirement of the additional funding. There is government, as we spoke to some of the regulators also, we thought of this, and Reserve Bank of India, we were party to some of the discussion that were happening. Government is of the opinion that we have created a fund, which is a SWAMIH fund, which is going to give you the balance construction money. In case if your existing lender is not giving the balance construction money, so you can always approach that fund and you can get the funding done from that SWAMIH fund itself. This is the answer that what the regulator are going to give it to you.
Right.
Now the third question which you now asked about that why the lenders has stopped disbursing the installment or the money which was committed by them earlier. Look, there are 3 types of lenders for the real estate industry. One is the banks, another is the NBFC, third is the AIF funds. It is only because if it is an AIF fund or the banks, if you have borrowed from AIF or bank, then there is this issue is not there. Anybody who has borrowed from an NBFC, this issue of the installment not getting paid or whatever the balance पैसा जो मुझे मिलना था, जो लोन यदि 100 रुपए का उन्होंने यदि सैंक्शन किया है, 50-60 रुपए उन्होंने डिस्बर्स कर दिए, balance amount they are not able to get. Because after this ILFS fiasco and after this epidemic, what has happened? Any NBFC which was lending to real estate, because this NBFC raw material was also that they used to borrow from bank and they used to fund to all the real estate players. NBFC, because of certain type of asset liability mismatch, or they are committed for a long term and they are borrowing on a short term basis. The reason can be multifold. I'm not getting into that. Just because the NBFC were not getting the funding on the back end, back-to-back arrangement tha. So since NBFC were not getting the funding from the bank, that is why they have stopped the lending to all the developers and other things. There we are requesting NBFC, sir, you give us the priority charge on the assets and the cash flow. Let us approach the SWAMIH fund and let us get the balance fund from there.
And is that happening now? Is that process?
I suppose after this last 3-4 months, there is a lot of awareness which has come up thanks to Praveen Jain and the initiatives which he has taken in also spreading about the awareness. I will tell you what the NAREDCO has done. Earlier, the rate of interest was around 15% plus processing fee. They have got it reduced by 3%. So they have made it far more affordable, that fund. Earlier, SWAMIH fund was not allowing even a single penny to be उस project से निकालने के लिए to be paid to the existing lender. But now with this NAREDCO intervention, what has happened, that whatever is some sort of an amount, if the cash flow permit, existing lender, whoever are there, they are also allowed some sort of a interest repayment is also there. So it is a work in process, I would say. But I suppose now the market, the existing investor, existing project wale, builder and the SWAMIH fund, they have also come of the age. And everybody knows कि till the time project gets completed, nothing, किसी को कुछ नहीं मिलने वाला. So the project getting completed has become the first and foremost intention of all the parties concerned into the race, whether it is the RWS who has also formed and other things. Right. So in some of the cases where builders are not able to do it, I suppose it is the RWS bringing in some other developer also, and they are also getting it done. Yes, yes.
Praveen ji, how much easier is it to source funds? We have seen that SWAMIH funds disbursals शुरू हो गए हैं, कई developers को मिल रहे हैं. They talked about 22,000 buyers who will be benefited by this. What changed and how has this helped take projects through to completion?
देखिए, अभी ज्योति जी ने एक बहुत अच्छी बात कही कि सबको आप दिखने लगा है, पहले बैंक्स को भी या एनबीएफसी को या आप SWAMIH फंड की बात करें या एंड यूजर हो या आरडब्ल्यू हो, कि जब तक प्रोजेक्ट पूरे नहीं होंगे तब तक किसी को कुछ मिलने वाला नहीं है. अगर वो प्रोजेक्ट स्टक हो गए तो सभी लूजर हैं, चाहे वो इन्वेस्टर हो, चाहे बैंकर हो या कोई भी हो. इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट ऑफ जितने भी स्टेट गवर्नमेंट हैं उन्होंने भी अपने इंटरेस्ट के अंदर रिडक्शन शुरू की है, उन्होंने पेमेंट को भी ईजी किया है. और बायर्स में भी अभी लोग पहले बायर को लगता था कि मैंने अगर इंस्टॉलमेंट नहीं दूंगा तो भाई पहले काम शुरू कीजिए तब इंस्टॉलमेंट देंगे. बायर को भी समझ आने लगा है कि अगर हम पैसा नहीं देंगे तो अब रेरा आने के बाद थोड़ा सा कॉन्फिडेंस भी बढ़ा है. तो मुझे लगता है कि चीजें ट्रैक पर आ रही हैं. थोड़ा टाइम जरूर लगेगा इसको पूरा होने के लिए, बट अब आरडब्ल्यू को भी इन्होंने पावर दे दी कि अगर जो प्रोजेक्ट पूरे नहीं हो सकते आरडब्ल्यू टावर ले ले. मुझे एक एग्जांपल देना चाहूंगा, गुड़गांव के अंदर एक प्रोजेक्ट है यूनिटेक का, पहले हम लोग भी टेकअप करने की बात कर रहे थे उसमें, तो उसमें भी आरडब्ल्यू बन गई और फिर 2-3 आरडब्ल्यू के अंदर भी 2-3 ग्रुप्स बन गए कि भाई ऐसा करना है ऐसा नहीं करना. तो उसमें भी एक लोग आगे आए, उन्होंने बोला कि एक टावर जो स्ट्रक्चर बना हुआ है खाली एज इट इज हमें दे दीजिए, हम खुद फिनिश कर लेंगे. और उन लोगों ने खुद मिलकर फिनिश भी कर लिया उसको और रहना भी शुरू कर दिया. तो इस तरह की चीजें आगे आ रही हैं. तो मुझे लगता है चीजें और अगले थोड़ा टाइम जरूर लगेगा इसके अंदर, अगले 1.5-2 साल में चीजें सुधर जाएंगी.
Praveen ji, right now the conversation we are having is that everything seems to be working, but there are a lot of consumers out there who are still finding it very difficult. So let's talk about the projects that are finding it difficult. किन projects में problems आ रही हैं और finance का problem क्या है जो वो सोच नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. ज्योति ने कहा कि मार्च तक 30 days से ज्यादा आपका ये नहीं होना चाहिए था, डिफॉल्ट नहीं होना चाहिए था. Are you able to ease these rules so that everybody can source the funds?
देखिए, हम लोग तो फाइट कर ही रहे हैं सरकार के साथ भी, और ये SWAMIH फंड की बात भी कर रहे हैं. हम काफी 2 साल से हम लोग इस बात के लिए काफी हमने प्रेशर गवर्नमेंट को किया, भी प्रेशराइज भी किया कि भाई जो नेटवर्क पॉजिटिव प्रोजेक्ट है एटलीस्ट उसके लिए तो कुछ फंड करें. जब तक प्रोजेक्ट पूरा नहीं होगा, अब गवर्नमेंट को भी समझ आने लगा है, जैसा अभी बताया कि भाई जब तक प्रोजेक्ट पूरा नहीं होगा किसी को कुछ मिलने वाला नहीं है. तो थोड़ा मैं जैसे वही चीज है अल्टीमेट कि थोड़ा टाइम जरूर इसके अंदर लग रहा है. जो पुराने रुके हुए प्रोजेक्ट हैं, बट जो नए प्रोजेक्ट हैं उसमें कोई चैलेंज नहीं है. नए प्रोजेक्ट टाइम से पूरे हो रहे हैं, सबके अकाउंट भी अलग अलग हैं. बट पुराने प्रोजेक्ट में अभी 1.5-2 साल का टाइम और लगेगा. मुझे लगता है काफी प्रोजेक्ट पूरे हो जाएंगे, और जो डेवलपर पूरे करने की सिचुएशन में नहीं है वहां पर नए डेवलपर उसके इशू में स्टेप इन कर रहे हैं और वो उसको प्रोजेक्ट को पूरा भी करने की बात.
ऐसे कौन से प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं जो SWAMIH फंड, NBFCs और फॉर्मल फाइनेंस नहीं ले पा रहे हैं? ऐसे कौन से क्लॉजेस हैं जिसकी वजह से वो नहीं ले पा रहे हैं?
मुझे लगता है फाइनेंस के बारे में ज्योति से ज्यादा बेहतर बता पाएंगे. तो ज्योति, आप इसका जवाब दें.
तो दो तीन चीजें हैं जो कि ना स्वामी फंड नहीं ले पाते हैं. एक तो wherever they don't get the priority charge on the project and the cash flow, there are some institutions which think कि because if they set aside the priority charge, so their account also becomes substandard, because एक तरह का restructuring हो गया ना, because आपने अपनी charge को छोड़ दिया तो their account gets also restandard, माने substandard. In some of the cases they are not very comfortable in doing that because they have got their own capital restrictions also for that, in case if they leave into account that. This is the first restriction. The second restriction is Swami Fund takes into they take into account the net worth positive project. Net worth positive project means whatever amount that is going to be received in the project. Whatever amount is going to be received in the project, they are going to take the minimum sale price realization. Whatever is the sales price realization, उस एरिया का जो barest minimum जो सेल जो आपका फ्लैट बिका है उसमें भी वो लोग 20-30% डिस्काउंट लगा के, this is how they are projecting the sales, and this is how they are also seeing कि ये inflow project के अंदर आना है. Then all the expenditure they are trying to mark up to some extent, so the positiveness of the project is also not coming. And thereafter all the due diligence process, because all the land process, land due diligence, getting the RERA extension, because whatever was the project which has stuck up, they have told the RERA and the authority that my project will get completed up to that time. And now the extension in the RERA also has to be done. Ki sir, now my project extension ka date padhana padega RERA se. To get the project extension date, you also have to take the customers whom you have sold the flat, you have to take their concurrence, and there is some also amount ki sir itne number of customers has to agree for the extension of that date. When you go to customer ki sir ye project ki date extend kar rahe hain, they are asking for the penalty or they are asking for the refund. So when they are asking for the refund or the penalty, so then the entire the project की economics उसी समय से खराब हो जाती है, because जब आप से project को date extension करने के लिए, whenever you are approaching the customer at that point of time, so it has become a catch-22 type of a situation right now. And I think it is by maturity of handling each and every stakeholder only it can be resolved. मतलब regulator और इससे ज़्यादा नहीं कर सकता, मुझे नहीं लगता है कि regulator will be able to do it. It is the customers also who are also equally, there are also some customer lobby, there are some customers who thinks that the property might not have appreciated so much as they have expected, so they would want their money back. I was speaking to one of the developer yesterday. He told one very very simple thing. उसने बोला कि सर मैं 15-16% ब्याज दे रहा हूँ इन NBFCs को या बैंक को. Customer can come and walk in कि मेरे को refund दे दो flat का with 8%. It means you are expecting कि सर 15-16% ब्याज और 8% customer को return का हम दे दें. इसका मतलब हम 23-24% हम return, which is the project which Praveen ji and Mahendra ji can say that at the present moment where there is so much of margin that you can sustain the NBFC loan also, and you can also give 8% customer refund amount whatever is asking for. Sir, you talk about, ma'am, you talk about any industry. If you talk about an airline refund or any refund, कहाँ पे interest दिया जाता है refund के लिए? Why the real estate industry has been asking to give the refund also at the will of the customer, and that too at 8% on a yearly basis? तो लोग FD में नहीं पैसा लगाएंगे, वो तो real estate builder को पैसा देंगे.
It's a large, I would here I would step in and say the large amount of money the customer has spent. The customer bought a commodity, the commodity was not delivered. If the commodity is not delivered, there is a penalty that has to be charged, and every industry, that is why the consumer dispute redressal commissions were there. So I would not back that argument. A customer only went out to buy a commodity, that is a house, for self-use or for investment. But if the default is there, I would not support you that ये कहाँ से penalty आ गया. बिल्कुल penalty लगेगा. But I would say that I have a view that if we allowed it to fester for 10 years, and then you say that now, at the risk of not being able to complete a project, let me first refund, the project economics gets spoiled. And here I'm going to bring Mahinder back into the conversation. Yeah. Mahinder, you're a finance guy, right? What I need you to tell us is, in a project, what percentage of sale do you need to effect for you to be able to manage the finances and complete the project. The rest of it is, whatever your payments are and things like that.
Yeah, actually, to manage the financial, like I said, is not just the what percentage of sale we booked, is how much, the most of the spend is done at the excavation and basement. So you consume more funds.
Yeah.
After that, the superstructure doesn't consume more funds. But then finishing, when finishing comes, then the fund consumption increases. So you have to see that, okay, the minimum, like in the RERA also, you cannot make an allotment letter. The allotment is done and confirmed sale is take place only at 10%. Once you receive a 10%. So then 10% amount is that one. So if you receive, say, initially 25% money, and then you have a CLP linked with your, construction plan. So with that one, you can manage it. So minimum, you should have the minimum 30% sale, so that you can assure that you will have a cash flow, a committed cash flow towards the at the end of the project.
Which means that your first, how much skin in the game does the developer need to have? How much of your own resources go into it?
That I will explain to you. Like if suppose the project cost is 100 rupees, say 100.
Right.
Or so minimum 20% the developer should have his own fund to infuse.
Yeah.
And maximum 25% is the project finance, which comes into the picture for the project, and the balance has to come from the customer collections, and which you have to plan with the various payment plan. You can also take like nowadays the other thing is the subvention. Though the NBFC has stopped the subvention, but the banks are giving the subvention. There is no bar on the banks to give the subvention.
Right.
So which help a buyer, so that his interest burden shift to the developer, and developer also get a cheaper finance.
Right.
And so with the NPV of say 7 or 9, 8%, the bank deduct. So it is the home loan interest, which is discounted at 8, 9%, and you get a upfront payment. So that's how you have to plan it. And like I mentioned, the commercial operation date and the cost of the project has to be meticulously planned. If you missed any of them, then the whole project will go haywire. And like Mr. Praveen was saying, that's a really positive development because nowadays, like he mentioned, Unitech, I think in Lotus also 360, the welfare association, have taken the project and they have done the self-development. Even in Amrapali case, you can see, they have appointed the NBCC. Now the customers are paying them money, so that because construction is going on. So though various, and IBC is also there. Now if everything is stuck up, so as a going concern, the IBC law is also framed to ensure that, the project is taken over by a company.
Seen so many successes from the IBC. Actually, if you look at the number of cases that went to the IBC, we haven't seen a lot of success. So clearly, we are still groping around for a solution. I'm going to go back to the questions that have been coming. There's Sameer Ahmed who's asked, what about the coming payments raised by builders? Should consumers pay? And why does the retail lender who has stopped the payments, when will the retail lender start paying? Jyoti, you want to answer that? Many retail lenders had stopped the installments. What does it take for the retail lender to start releasing them again?
The retail lenders, whatever that they are seeing, because retail lender, they are based on the projection ki whatever is your income which was coming, you might be in a job, you might be doing some business. So based on the past income assessment, they have done the eligibility criteria. So what all the retail lenders are doing, they are trying to reestablish the eligibility criteria of each and every borrower during this COVID time, that whether the job is intact or not, whether the salaries are coming in time or not, and whether how much is the amount which is coming. So maximum of the retail lenders, whatever that they are doing this reassessment of the loan and also the eligibility criteria for the individual buyer. If they are thinking that the eligibility criteria of the buyer remains the same, whatever it was before the COVID times, there the retail loan has not stopped, or in case if it has stopped because of the NBFC's own reason, there are plethora of banks and NBFCs which are there to give this customer loan into the retail segment. Problem is only with those retail accounts where the person itself has lost the job, or there is a salary cut, or the income has reduced. This
and
is
that could be a significant amount, right? That is where the deferred payments, the restructuring of individual loans also could work.
I would just like to mention here, Jayashree ma'am, that earlier when the eligibility amount which was calculated 2 to 3 years before, that time the home loan rate of interest was around 8%. Now the home loan rate of interest has also reduced to around 6.8% to 7%. So there is a reduction of around 1% to 1.5% rate of reduction in the home loan amount, home loan interest, which has also enhanced the eligibility criteria. Bankers are now allowed to give the loan up to 30 years. Earlier they were restricted only up to 15 years. So regulator has now permitted a longer tenure of the loan, and the rate of interest has also reduced, so that the maximum number of the retail customers, they can fit into the re-eligibility criteria. I'm not talking about the post-eligibility, pre-eligibility criteria, but now with this extension of the tenure and with this reduction in the rate of interest, I suppose there should not be any issue in terms of the problem in case if the job itself is not there. But if there is a salary cut, I think that issue can be managed.
Okay. There's another question. What kind of funds are available to developers today? Praveen ji, you want to talk about what kind of funds are developers availing of?
Jyoti will.
Jyoti, will you take?
I can. Look, it is a very, very broad question, Jayashree ma'am. Let me just give you the perspective कि माने कितने तरह के funding और what are the scenarios available. Yeah. We have to first decide whether the funding that we are asking, it is the pre-construction period or the post-construction period. मतलब हमने commercial building हमको बनाने के लिए residential building we want for the construction loan, or after the construction is completed we want the loan, at which life cycle of the project that we are asking for the loan. This is the first consideration. I'm just giving what are the important considerations to be kept in mind, and thereafter I will come back to you. What is the type of institution and funding is available for which life cycle of the project? Yeah. I can clearly come and tell that these are the 5 life cycles of the project. For life cycle stage 1, 2, 3, funding is not available, and for life cycle stage 4 and 5, the funding is available. So let us understand. First of all, we need to understand what is the life cycle of the project. Then we need to understand what is the nature of the project, whether it is a residential, commercial, warehouse, or what is the type of the real estate asset class that we are talking about. Then we need to answer that what are the institutions that we need to approach, whether it is the bank, NBFC or AIF. So it has to be a combined mixture. Which life cycle of the project, किस तरह की institution को approach कर रहे हैं, और हम लोग रेसिडेंशियल या कमर्शियल विच एसेट क्लास के लिए अप्रोच कर रहे हैं. When these 3 metrics has been sorted out, that time we will be able to answer that for which of this combination of 3 into 3 metrics, that whichever the funds are being available or not available. Yeah. I can tell you on a basic broader principle. I'm not talking about the top builders of the country. Leave aside top 8-10 builders of the country. Let us concentrate on the majority of the builders. Whether the construction finance for the commercial or the residential project available, my answer to broadly is no. If there is no construction finance which is at the present moment which is available either from the NBFCs or from the banking side. Yeah. There can be small AIF funds which are available up to the construction finance requirement of 50-60 crore. I can understand there might be some person who might be able to lend the money. It is not the question of what is the best practices that the developer is following or not following. We are now understanding what is the requirement of the institution who is going to give the fund. If we are qualifying those criteria, we are one of the good developer. If we are not qualifying that criteria, we are not a good developer. It is as simple as that. What we as a developer think कि मैंने project time से दिया या नहीं दिया, whether I don't fall under the criteria of the lending institution, it has got no meaning to me. So now look what was happening before this ILFS era. What was happening? There are 2 major disconnect here. There are 2 major concern areas that we need to understand why the funding is not actually happening to the real estate industry. First of all, it is the risk weightage. रिस्क वेटेज दैट वेदर आप चाहे क्लास में फर्स्ट आ जाइए चाहे क्लास में लास्ट आ जाइए, whatever is the quality of the developer, the risk weightage for any of the real estate project is 150%. So bank, there is a capital charge of 150% if their banks is lending to any of the real estate developer. So banks were not very comfortable in the lending to the real estate developer, because rating, whether it is A rated, whether it is highest rated, whether it is a D rated, it doesn't have any impact on the risk weightage. Now what was happening, NBFCs, when they have the rating, so the risk weightage was different. If all the say AA rated NBFC, risk weightage was only 20% or 30%. So risk weightage was approximately drastically down in case if the banks were lending to NBFCs. So what was happening in this, NBFCs were lending to the same developer to which banks यदि lend करता तो उसका 150% का risk weightage आता. If banks would have lended, तो उनका risk weightage 150% आता. It means the capital charge would have been 15 rupees for every 100 rupees lent, if the banks would have directly given the money to builder. Now if they are routing it through an NBFC, their capital charge is only 2 rupees. Right. So NBFCs were acting as a conduit till in this last 4-5 years, that NBFCs were borrowing from the bank and then NBFCs were giving to the builder. So बहुत अच्छे से ये scheme was going on and the market was also very plethora and builders were also happy that they are getting the funding, and NBFCs were also happy that they were getting for 4 or 5% cut in between whatever the difference of the amount, and banks were also happy that they have got a less capital charge. But after this ILFS fiasco, this whole scenario has undergone a change, that now NBFCs is not getting the funding, because banks are now saying that I will not lend it to you directly, I will buy your portfolio. आपने जिसको lending करी है मैं वो portfolio खरीद लेता हूँ. Now NBFCs were lending to the developer out of the bank के जो norms है वो तो follow नहीं कर रहे थे NBFC. So banks are not able to buy the portfolio of the NBFCs, and banks are not ready to lend as a direct term loan to the NBFCs. So problem is, this is where the question mark is stuck up, because NBFCs का जो bank, so it means the problem is the risk weightage assignment of the real estate industry vis-a-vis the NBFC industry. So once we resolve that risk weightage issue, so and banks will start lending to the builder, escaping that NBFC route. Sorry, yes ma'am.
Praveen ji, is NAREDCO working with the IBA, with the government on reducing this risk weightage? Clearly, Jyoti has hit the nail on the head that you have made finance very, very difficult for an industry which is very capital intensive. So what is NAREDCO doing about it?
हम लोग काफी टाइम से इसकी डिमांड कर रहे हैं, और ये भी गवर्नमेंट को अब समझ आने लगा है, जब वो जितने NBFCs हैं जो बैक टू बैक जब वो रीपेमेंट नहीं कर पा रही थी. पहले अगर किसी NBFC की बात करें, वो 100 रुपये उसकी कैपिटल थी या 100 रुपये उन्होंने लोन दिया था, फिर 200 हो गया, 500 हो गया, एज इज डेवलपर को लोन देते थे और पीछे से बैक टू बैक उनको फाइनेंस मिल जाता था, जैसे अभी पूरा अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन किया इन्होंने. बट जब वो साइकिल रुका, वो रुकने के बाद आज बैंकिंग सिस्टम को भी समझ आना शुरू हुआ, फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री को भी समझ आना शुरू हुआ. तो मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा टाइम जरूर लेंगे ये लोग. अब हमने इनको रिस्क वेटेज कम करने की बात की है, इंडस्ट्री स्टेटस देने की बात की है, बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, बट थोड़ा टाइम लग रहा है. मुझे लगता है चीजें होंगी, थोड़ा टाइम जरूर लगेगा सरकार.
What is the risk weightage that you should be fighting?
एटलीस्ट 100 तो होना, मतलब हमने तो भी कम से कम उनसे बात की कि 100 तो करें, 150 की जगह
50%. Sir, I can tell you, एक सेकंड, we have got a statistical data to prove that any industry जिसके अंदर रिस्क वेटेज इज व्हाट, इट इज द प्रीमियम ऑन द कितना मेरा रिस्क हो सकता है ना, उसके ऊपर ही तो रिस्क वेटेज डिटरमाइन होगा. यू कंसीडर ना कि कितना एनपीए हुआ है बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री में, इट इज फॉर द रियल एस्टेट इंडस्ट्री विज़ अदर इंडस्ट्री. यू जस्ट कंपेयर इट आउट और उसके बेसिस पे नंबर निकाल लीजिए.
देखिए, अगर स्टेटस तो मिल जाता है, मतलब इंडस्ट्री स्टेटस मिलने के बाद ये चीजें रिजॉल्व हो जाएंगी. अभी तक तो इंडस्ट्री स्टेटस इन्होंने दिया नहीं रियल एस्टेट को, अगर वो मिल जाता है तो शायद ये चीजें भी शायद रिजॉल्व हो जाएंगी.
अफोर्डेबल हाउसिंग को तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर स्टेटस दे दिया गया है ना, उससे ईज हुआ.
एक सेकंड मैम, again I will just come back to another issue which is again you will answer this affordable housing issue also. Real estate के अंदर में for any project the life cycle constitute minimum 8 to 10 years. Whatever the Praveen ji and Mahendra ji, they can also tell us that from the procurement of the land to getting all the approvals to completion. But it generally take 8 to 10 years for completion of the life cycle. You tell me, or any institution, I'm not talking about the regulator ki kya restriction ho to hata dijiye. Any lender, Mahendra ji is here, Praveen ji is here, which lender is ready to give a loan to a real estate builder for more than 4 years?
No.
It means what was happening earlier was that earlier the smaller NBFC used to come in at the start of the project. There were different types of NBFCs which used to come at one life cycle of the project at the land acquisition stage or at the pre-construction stage. Then then once the project achieve a certain life cycle of a project, then some other NBFC used to come in, and because of this RBI, whenever they have come up with this restructuring guidelines, कि sir, if you take over a loan and you change the repayment period in this, when they have scrapped all the older circular of restructuring. So पहले क्या होता था कि 4 साल का लोन लिया और उसको किसी बैंक के NBFC से हम लोग चेंज करा लेते थे, because the life cycle of the project was 8 to 10 years and I am only getting a loan of 4 years. But now because of this restructuring guidelines coming in, so there is no other NBFCs or bank, तो मैं तो stuck हो गया ना, because मैंने लोन 4 साल का लिया हुआ है. Actually में the project के लोन के period की requirement 10 साल की है. So where will I go?
Mahendra, you had something.
Yeah. Actually, the two very important points which have been raised. One is the industry status. The government of India wants, housing for all by 2022 and has set a big target. But, what we want to achieve at a national level should be, the preparation should be seen on the ground for that one. There is no doubt the developer, like Mr. Jyoti has said and Mr. Praveen has said, the developer may be AAA rated, AA rated, or even investment rated, BBB, which is the, BBB minus, which is the investment rating. That has nothing to do whenever the financing from the banks or NBFC is concerned, because they do their own internal assessment. And their internal assessment and their internal rating is totally different what we get. And the risk factor comes in over there. Firstly, like Mr. Jyoti said that, the whole project of real estate takes 8 and 9 years. Yes, right. It takes from the time you acquire the land. Sure. But nobody makes a payment for the land. Land is the basic raw material, and the land should be financed from the developer side, or you should have a JV if you cannot finance the land. So land capital, because the NBFC were financing the land, and they were charging, or private equity funds were, coming into picture to finance the land part, or to make the balance land payment. So that was escalating the project cost like anything, and the rate of interest had been very hefty, from not less than minimum 20-21%. So the banks come in to make only the construction finance. Banks never allow you to make the land payment, and is one of the most important covenant of the terms of sanction. And the banks, based on the construction, and even say are in the RERA, they say the date of our X project is say December 20. So the bank extend, because you will not be able to sell your whole inventory by this one, and your all receivable will not come by that one. The project may be completed, but you will have a leftover inventory. So the bank's repayment terms are always extended, say minimum 1.5 years or 2 years post completion date, which you mentioned in the RERA. So that it goes from minimum 4 to 6 years, and so that your project should be, like I mentioned the term, commercial operation date. So that's when you are able to deliver the project, and you are able to finance the complete the term loan. So important thing is, if the government want to achieve the objective that housing for all, and the RBI in terms of lowering the home loan has done a wonderful job, like 6 to 7%, and it has really come down, and which is really facilitating, every a common man having the home loan from the bank. But in this one, if you want to have a home loan, so you should be in a job. Now the GDP going negative 24%. How you are sure that you will retain your job, and how you are sure that you will buy a property, say of 80 lakhs, 90 lakhs? No property comes less than 60 lakhs. So who will put a stake, and how the bank will have a confidence that okay, you will be you will be able to continue your EMI, like the private banks have done a review of the EMIs during this COVID period. And not only that, they have also put a review for the developers also whenever you come for the next product. So these are the hard realities. So the thing is, because government has to give an industry status to it and has to make it as a priority lending. Until and unless government doesn't make priority lending, leave aside the affordable sector and non-affordable, because everybody is buying, everybody need one house to live. So at least even for one house, they should make it, they should bring this sector under a priority sector. Once it come under priority sector, we will have all the developers will have a easy finance, like manufacturing sector we are having. And that's how the cheaper finance will come, the cost of production will come down, and the industry will develop. That's what I think.
Praveerji, as NAREDCO, what has been your experience of asking for the industry status as well as
priority sector?
Yeah, priority
sector. ये बात की अभी महेंद्र जी ने, बट मुझे लगता है इसके अलावा जो टाइम साइकिल जैसे बात हो रही है कि 8 साल लगते हैं, 9 साल लगते हैं किसी प्रोजेक्ट को कंप्लीट करने के लिए, जब तक वो टाइम साइकिल कम नहीं होगा, हम सिंगल विंडो क्लियरेंस की बात काफी सरकार से काफी टाइम से कर रहे हैं कि आप सारी लैंड बाइंग से लेकर और जब कंस्ट्रक्शन स्टार्ट करते हैं, वो जो टाइम साइकिल है वो करीब 3 से 4 साल का है। अभी पीछे हमने हरियाणा गवर्नमेंट के साथ एक हाउसिंग फॉर ऑल के ऊपर ही डिस्कशन किया था, उसमें हमने बताया उनको कि 180 साइन हमें करवाने पड़ते हैं, 180 सिग्नेचर अलग अलग टेबल्स के ऊपर। अभी मान के चलें यार एक टेबल के ऊपर भी 10 दिन लग रहे हैं या एक हफ्ता भी लग रहा है, तो 180 डेज वीक्स तो सिर्फ सिग्नेचर के लिए हो गए। तो इतने नंबर्स हैं सिग्नेचर करवाने के लिए। तो अगर ये सिंगल विंडो क्लियरेंस की अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं कि अगर जो टाइम लाइन अगर वो 3 महीने या 6 महीने हो जाए लैंड प्रोक्योरमेंट से लेकर और स्टार्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट तक, वो टाइम साइकिल जो अभी 8 साल का है वो 4 साल में जब तक कंप्लीट 4 साल में नहीं रुकेगा आगे ना, ये हम अचीव नहीं कर पाएंगे हाउसिंग फॉर ऑल। हम सिर्फ बातें करते रहेंगे। 2022 की बात कर रहे हैं, 2022 तो सिर्फ 2 साल बाद आने वाला है, अभी 2020 में हम बैठे हैं। तो नंबर्स की अगर बात करें, 2000 हमने जब स्टडी किया था NAREDCO में KPMG के साथ मिलकर, तब वो 11 करोड़ घर की बात थी, जिसमें 4 करोड़ अर्बन एरियाज के अंदर थे और 7 करोड़ रूरल एरियाज में बात थी। वो 4 करोड़ से उठ के फिर वो 2 करोड़ रह गए। फिर पीछे हमारे मिनिस्टर साहब ने, मंत्री जी ने बोला कि वो 2 करोड़ नंबर को गलत थे, 1 करोड़ 35-40 लाख है, जिसमें से हम इतने अचीव कर चुके हैं। मैं कह रहा हूँ नंबर्स के ऊपर नहीं जाते हम, अगर हमें ये अचीव करना है इसको, तो ये जो साइकिल है जो हम 8 साल की बात कर रहे हैं, जब तक ये साइकिल शॉर्ट नहीं होगा, ये सारी अप्रूवल सिंगल विंडो नहीं होगी। आप ये देखें बहुत से प्रोजेक्ट ऐसे हैं जो बन के तैयार हैं और उसके बाद भी 2-2 साल उसको ऑक्यूपेशन लेने के लिए, कंप्लीशन के लिए, बिजली कनेक्शन लेने के लिए, सीवेज कनेक्शन लेने के लिए अगर लग जाता है, तो कितना अनफॉर्चुनेट है हमारी मतलब इंडस्ट्री के लिए। जब तक ये चीजें खत्म नहीं होंगी, और फाइनेंसिस तो एक पार्ट है, मैं मान रहा हूँ मुद्दा, और डेवलपर को भी इसमें थोड़ा सा मुझे लगता है समझना पड़ेगा। जो पहले डेवलपर्स एक के बाद एक प्रोजेक्ट, जिसकी कैपेसिटी 5 प्रोजेक्ट करने की है, वो 25 प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे थे। तो अब आज की तारीख में सिनेरियो थोड़ा चेंज हो चुका है। अब लोगों को ऐसे काम करना पड़ेगा, ये मान के चलें कि बुकिंग हो या ना हो, आपको स्ट्रक्चर कंप्लीट करने तक का फाइनेंशियल अरेंजमेंट करना पड़ेगा, चाहे वो बैंकिंग के साथ हो या ओन फंड हो। जिस दिन आप इस स्टेज में पहुंच जाएंगे कि कंस्ट्रक्शन अपने पैसे से, या वो अरेंजमेंट पहले है कि अगर आप ये नहीं कि हम जैसे महेंद्र जी बता रहे थे 20% या 30% मान के चलते हैं सेल हो जाएगी, उसकी इंस्टॉलमेंट आ जाएगी, वो सिनेरियो बहुत अच्छा सिनेरियो नहीं है। आने वाला टाइम ऐसा नहीं है। आने वाले टाइम के अंदर मुझे लगता है रेडी टू मूव इन प्रॉपर्टी बिकेगी, या जहां पर स्ट्रक्चर कम से कम बन चुका है, लोगों को पता है कि अगले 1 साल में मैं इस स्टेज पे पहुंच जाऊंगा कि फिनिशिंग हो जाएगी, वो प्रोजेक्ट बिकेंगे। या वो प्रोजेक्ट की डिमांड आज भी है। आज भी अगर हम बात करें तो पिछले 1.5-2 साल के अंदर अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन प्रॉपर्टी के अंदर सेल नहीं है बिल्कुल भी। अगर सेल है तो परसेंटेज वाइज बहुत कम है। सबसे ज्यादा डिमांड जो भी चल रही है अंडर रेडी टू मूव इन प्रॉपर्टीज की डिमांड है, बिक रही है प्रॉपर्टी। और मुझे नहीं लगता कोविड के टाइम पर भी कुछ 2 महीने का तो बीच में गैप आया था। आज की तारीख में मार्केट सिचुएशन थोड़ा बेटर है, सेल हो रही है। तो ये हमें 3-4 चीजों पर काम करना पड़ेगा। लाइफ साइकिल प्रोजेक्ट का जो 8 साल है उसको 4 साल में लेके आना पड़ेगा। किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट को 3 साल अगर रीजनेबल साइकिल का साइज का प्रोजेक्ट है तो उसमें 3 साल लगते हैं प्रोजेक्ट कंस्ट्रक्शन करने में, और 1 साल सारी अप्रूवल को मान के चले, जो कंस्ट्रक्शन भी और पोस्ट कंस्ट्रक्शन भी। तो अगर हम साइकिल कम कर दें, अब प्रायोरिटी लैंडिंग करते हैं, इसको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इंडस्ट्री स्टेटस दे दें, तो मुझे लगता है चीजें रिजॉल्व हो जाएंगी। बट सरकार भी इस पे काम कर रही है थोड़ा सा, मुझे लगता है, और एंथुसियाज्म की जरूरत है सरकार को भी और डेवलपर को भी और बायर को भी।
एक्चुअली हमने कभी इस इंडस्ट्री को इस पर्सपेक्टिव से देखा ही नहीं है। इंडस्ट्री तो डेटा लेके आगे आई नहीं है। This is the first time that we are seeing that there is data coming at a consolidated industry level. One more thing I would like all of you, I think we are almost running out of time, so I'm going to pick up only one more issue. Between a developer and a project, how does the bank view them separately? Jyoti, you referred to it, there was a fleeting mention of it. Sometimes some projects can be completed even if the developer is in trouble because the project itself is in an advanced stage. Today, in this entire effort to resolve the problem, are we now giving priority to project over developer? Jyoti?
In my opinion, the answer is yes. Given all the effort towards the government, if you talk about the awareness of the customer which has come in, and also the institutional lending institution, whether it is the bank, NBFCs, everybody has realized that the project need to be completed. And there are ardent example with Mahenderji is also mentioned that you can look at, and which the Pravinji also mentioned that every developer now, the market is getting also this sanitization ki project to complete karna hi padega aaj ke din mein. And I'm looking it from a bank's perspective also. Earlier, you look at all the NCLT cases that were also happening. Each and every single customer were taking the cases to the NBFC. In 2 of our accounts, we have seen that the customers are being restricted by the other set of customers only. They are only saying ki bhai mat leke jao project ke andar mein, let us try to resolve the issue, because otherwise the problem will get, it is going to be getting aggravated and other things. So I am personally of the opinion that market is getting maturity and project completion is becoming the priority. Wherever the problem is only happening where the net worth positiveness of the project is not there. So who is going to fund the deficit in the project? If there is a juice in the project, I can assure you ki whether RWA or some other builder coming in or whatever it is there, the project will get completed. The problem is only for those projects where there is no juice left or the juice has been extracted earlier itself.
In which case you need some additional FAR or something like that to give it
the project. I agreed. But because of metro also, there are some projects which were earlier which were not viable. Now also because of that FSI getting increased, it has become viable. And also in that court, that Supreme Court order, in that way the rate of interest they have pegged at that has also becoming some sort of a positiveness that the juice quantity has increased now.
And that's a positive.
That's a very, very positive sign, Jess.
Absolutely. I'm going to take just one minute to Mahinder and to Praveenji. Please respond to this project versus developer. Is that becoming a norm with financial institutions? Mahinder?
जैसे अभी ज्योति ने बताया कि जिसमें जूस अभी थोड़ा सा है वो तो प्रोजेक्ट पूरे हो जाएंगे, और मुझे लगता है जिसमें जूस नहीं है वहां पर भी अगर कंपनी में जूस है ना, अगर किसी 2 प्रोजेक्ट में नहीं है 2 में है तो पहले वो फर्स्ट 2 प्रोजेक्ट पूरे हो जाएंगे, अगले 2 प्रोजेक्ट बाद में पूरे हो जाएंगे. और मुझे अगर हम इसके बाद भी बात करें, देखिए हमेशा टाइम जैसा नहीं रहता. अगर हम रियल एस्टेट को पिछले 20 साल का साइकिल देखें तो प्रॉपर्टी के प्राइस हमेशा जब भी थोड़ा सा इंप्रूवमेंट होती है बाजार में तो काफी शूट अप होते हैं. तो जहां पर आज जूस नहीं है तो मुझे लगता है आने वाले टाइम में वहां जूस निकल जाएगा कभी ना कभी. जब जिस दिन प्रॉपर्टी बाजार में तेजी आएगी, कोई ना कोई डेवलपर अगर वो नहीं कर पाएगा तो कोई और पूरा कर देगा. एंड यूजर का पैसा, मतलब मुझे लगता है कि वो कोई ना कोई प्रोजेक्ट तो पूरा करेगा ही, चाहे वो किसी भी स्टेज पर हो, कहीं पर भी हो. और टाइम इसमें जरूर लग सकता है जो इस तरह के प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं. बट मुझे लगता है आने वाले, जैसे पिछले अगर 2 साल में देखें सिनेरियो के अंदर, काफी इंप्रूवमेंट आई है बाजार के अंदर, और आने वाले 1-2 साल के अंदर चीजें और ज्यादा बेटर हो जाएगी.
एंड उस इंप्रूवमेंट को डॉक्यूमेंट करने के लिए हम लोग हैं. महेंद्र, योर क्लोजिंग कमेंट.
Mahendra ji, please unmute yourself.
Mahinder, you're mute.
Yeah. Actually, I also agree with Mr. Jyoti and Mr. Praveen on this issue. The project come first, whether juice is there or not there. And in the real estate, a small development can create a juice in the project anytime, even if it is not there at present. So, like the development activities are taking place everywhere, and so the first priority nowadays is always of the developer and as well as of the end users, that the project should be developed.
Yeah.
And nowadays, those who are buying the property, they are basically the end users. So the investors are basically phased out, because that scenario was taking place when the investors were there, they made the investment.
Yeah.
So nowadays the investors are almost phased out. The end user is there, and it is the endeavor from the both the sides, and the regulation from the UP RERA and from other state RERAs, that the project should be developed, whether it is developed through the developer, if developer is not able, or through the RWA, or if they are also fail, then the bank who has financed it, they always try to go to other developers who can take the project so that their finances also remain intact and the project get developed. And the banks also have the right, to buy the property at a fixed rate as per their covenant. That terms they keep at the end, so that in case anything goes, beyond their control, they can exercise that right to buy the project inventory at a specified rate. And last option, as I already mentioned, is the IBC. If none of the factor is available, then it remains IBC. So that's how the project ultimately will get developed. And we have seen in the Amarpali case, which was the worst scenario, the projects are getting developed.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. For consumers who have been asking about how your projects will be complete, the scenario has changed significantly over the last 2 years. There has been more funding, last mile funding made available to the industry. Like Jyoti said, the banking industry itself is trying to see how it can finish the projects, because when projects are finished, that's when the money can be extracted and everybody gets their money's worth. But at the end of the day, the industry still reels under a huge risk weightage of 150%. You need to bring that down if lenders have to find comfort in lending to the industry. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.